Hello, listener. Welcome back to the podcast. Just a quick announcement. You'll be stuck with me, unfortunately, for this episode. Just me. Ryan is away for work. So we'll jump straight in to our guest today. We have a ChatTAP guest. I thought we'd still play the guessing game. Obviously, I won't get any feedback with answers, but I thought I'd give you three clues that I would have given Ryan today to see if you can guess where we are. So, clue number one is the official flower of this place is the trillium. The beautiful white three-petaled flower can be found growing wild in spring. Second clue for you. There are more than 50,000 farms in this place, and the soil quality of these thousands of farms means that half of the highest grade farm soil is located here. And the third and final clue is there's a city in this place that features the largest number of waterfalls in an urban area. It's a shame Ryan isn't on today because we aren't in the States, and I am guessing that he would have had three American state guesses. We are actually in Whitby, Ontario, in Canada. Here's a fun fact about Whitby, Ontario. Captain James Cook studied his seaman's apprenticeship right here in Whitby. He's one of the most famous explorers of our time and had a huge impact on Western knowledge. And another fun fact about James Cook, Lieutenant James Cook, captain of the HMB Endeavour, claimed the eastern portion of the Australian continent for the British Crown in 1770, naming it New South Wales, which is south of where Ryan and I live. It'd take us probably a couple of hours to 2 and a bit hours to hit the border of New South Wales. So our guest is a previous guest actually from last year. She was on. I'll give you a bit of a summary, and then you might be able to guess who we're talking about as well, or who we're talking to today. So our guest is a grief expert, an author, and a mental health facilitator. She's a single mum of adult son Sean, loves writing, creating content and listening to audiobooks. She enjoys aqua jogs in the morning, having a morning coffee, meditation, and journaling. She was on episode 55, so not that long ago, and she spoke about her 8-year-old daughter, Rachel, who died from complications from a flu virus in December of 1998. Rachel's platelets, if you'll remember, plummeted to a dangerous level, and doctors performed brain surgery on her. But after hours of surgery, they said that her brain was too swollen and she was pronounced brain dead. So our guest today, to welcome back a previous guest, now a chat to a professional guest, is Cheryl Parker. So welcome back to the Remembering Them podcast, Cheryl. So back when you recorded late last year, it was Remembering Dad podcast, and you were actually not you specifically, but you were one of the people which prompted the reason for the name change because you were on talking about your daughter. So we wanted to be more inclusive, I guess, and branding wise, tell people that we weren't just talking about dads, we were talking about other loved ones that had passed as well. So welcome back to the Remembering Them podcast for 2024. Cheryl, it's great to have you back.
Thank you so much. And I did notice the name change, and I remember talking to you when I was going to be on last year about like should I just talk about my dad? And you said no, 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 we can talk about whatever. And I wondered whether the name change was to broaden the audience and let everybody bring their stories about whatever grief they're dealing with. And and as we talked about last time, grief is such a broad, expansive topic. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. For those that haven't listened back, so episode 54 for those listening and want to go back and listen to Cheryl's episode, give us a quick summary of who we spoke about and what happened to her.
Yeah, so yeah, I, experienced a trauma in my family. My 8-year-old daughter Rachel died from complications from a flu virus, and I was brought to my knees and went through my own grieving process as I would. But during that time, I got an opportunity to donate Rachel's organs, and Don Cherry and Mike Harris in Ontario, Canada, were putting together the Trillium Gift of Life organization. and they were advocating for people to express their wishes about organ donation. And Rachel miraculously had actually expressed her wishes because I had been reading a newspaper article about a little boy who had undergone a double lung transplant. So when she found out about that, she said, I want to give my organ so I can save kids. And 5 weeks later, I was faced with that daunting question: have you considered organ donation? And it was kind of a no brainer for me because she had actually expressed that she wanted to. So when I was in my desperation and powerlessness of grief, I was able to make a very easy decision on donating her organs. And it was through that experience of doing a lot of public speaking because Rachel became a bit of a poster child for organ donation at that time because they were working on advocating for organ donation. So I did a lot of public speaking, and it was during that time that I saw how many people were out there hurting. And I saw how powerful it was to take a tragic story and actually inspire people. So that fueled me to want to get into the grief business. Now, at the time, I was in my acute stages of grief and couldn't put sentences together or thoughts together. So I had to go through my own grief process. But I knew in my heart that, you know, there's some kind of calling happening here. And I knew that once I got to the other side of the pain, that I wanted to help others walk through their process. And I wasn't really interested in taking like a therapeutic or a psychology approach to it. I just wanted to educate people because when I was going through my process, I just felt like we're not, it's true, we are not taught how to grieve, and we're not taught how to support others. And I just saw the, all the gaps, I guess, in society and how I struggled with this. And I just thought I can't be the only one out there. So I just really wanted to bring education to people and teach my lessons and share my victories and my pitfalls and just help someone navigate it because I wished that I had that education and I was like a dog with a bone trying to find resources back 25 years ago. And I mean, we have come a long way, but it still seems like it's a taboo topic, and unless you've actually been there, it's a little I guess, intimidating or awkward to broach those topics. So, yeah, I wanted to normalize the conversation about grief because we all experience it, and nobody's getting out of here alive. We are all going to go through this at some point, and even understanding that grief isn't just associated with death was a huge lesson for me. So, just wanting to normalize the conversation.
It's a good point that you raise, that we're not taught how to grieve. So what was your process with, I guess, learning, after Rachel passed to help you through that process?
Yeah, well, I remember at the time being so blessed that I had people around me that were like making sure that I did things, because I felt like I had brain damage myself. I mean, Rachel ended up with a condition called ITP, where your antibodies attack your platelets instead of the virus. And so they did brain surgery on her, but after a few hours, they were going to remove the front left lobe of her brain, but it was too swollen and she was pronounced brain dead. And so I remember thinking, I must have sympathy pains because I feel like I have brain damage. But I later learned that grief is actually like having brain damage. And so, going through that process, I really didn't know really even the next logical thing to do. So I was blessed, like I say, to have people around me. But then, as I tried to navigate life, I just felt like was so ill-equipped. And so I was like getting my hands on any book I could read or attending workshops, going to bereaved family support groups, and like just doing whatever I could to gather knowledge about how to navigate this unfamiliar way of living.
And if I remember correctly, Cheryl, was it a flyer that Rachel had seen with the organ donation?
No, it was a newspaper article that I
That's
had
right.
read about a little boy who had undergone a lung transplant. So she was just peeking over my shoulder and saw this little boy in the hospital bed and his arms were extended in victory and she was just thinking, well, he looks like he's got all these tubes hooked up and yet he looks happy. So what's going
Mm,
on there? And so I explained it to her and so she just really embraced the whole idea of giving. And she went back to playing. And then 5 minutes later, poked her head up and said, well, I want to give my organs so I can save kids. So little did I know 5 weeks later, being hit with this flu bug and her getting this condition called ITP was going to cause so many complications and then ended up in brain surgery and brain dead. It was like back up the bus. My kid's got the flu. And so that's when I was presented with the question of whether I had considered it or not. So I was able to say that Rachel had.
yeah. So, what's the process? Is it different for a child, or is it a similar process? And I'm not sure if it's different from country to country or even state to state, but um, is that then your decision as the parent slash guardian post her passing away, or was it before she had actually passed that the question was posed to you and you had to decide then, I guess?
Yeah, it's after and in all circumstances when someone dies, they look to the next of kin to get permission. So that's why they were really advocating that you express your wishes because if if you have not expressed that, your family is in this distraught emotional state. And quite often they say no because it's like one more thing to deal with. So, a lot of people were saying no. And, there was a lot of missed opportunities, I guess, to save lives. So that's why they were really advocating for people to express their wishes because that is who gets to make the decision. So even as adults, if a man dies, then the wife makes the decision, and vice versa. If the wife dies, the husband makes the decision of whether or not to donate. So that's how it works.
I understand there are religious beliefs around why someone wouldn't uh, donate. That aside,
Yeah.
are there any other reasons why people wouldn't or shouldn't?
Um, I think it's just a personal decision. Like I say, I would have said too that sometimes there are religious beliefs, but other than the religious beliefs, it's just a personal choice.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
mean, sometimes you might say, yes, I do want to donate, but the organs are not viable. Like
yes,
it could be that they don't qualify to do that. So, it just depends on the circumstances.
yeah. And how has that now driven that experience driven you, as you said, you had some public speaking opportunities, I guess, because Rachel became the poster child for organ donation. And how has that driven you to what you do today? And I guess you're doing a lot of advocacy work.
Yeah, when I was out there public speaking, I noticed that, like I said, for one thing, I just saw how powerful it was to share a tragedy and inspire others. And that really, I guess for me, I had to have something positive come out of it, or else there was really no meaning for me to carry on. I actually was suicidal. Like I thought that it'd be best if I just killed myself and went away. I thought my son would be better off because I thought, he's lost his sister, um, and he's lost his mom at the same time because I was no longer the same person and didn't feel like I could be there for him. So I thought I'd be better off gone. And when I was out there speaking and hearing so many people hurting, and they would line up to talk to me after I spoke. And that experience just really drove me to realize that, there isn't that education out there on how to move through this and get to the other side and have joy. And I was just kind of my bargain with God. It was like if my life's going to be about paying the mortgage and raising my son, and I'm just going to be a sad sack of a person, check me out. Like I'm done. I just wasn't willing to prescribe to that. And so I knew that I needed a bigger purpose, and that was what it was for me, was doing that. Now I work in the IT field and I'm a project manager with one of the big banks in Canada. So I had my corporate job, but I knew that on the side I wanted to be doing this as a purposeful thing in my life to bring me joy. And I just knew that I wanted to land on my feet with love and joy in my heart. And this has just been my soul work ever since.
Yeah. It's amazing to think that, because I guess, and I haven't been in this situation, so I certainly can't speak to any authority around it, but we've have had guests in the past, I guess, that have spoken about loss of a child and um, the purpose being the other surviving child or children. Is the only, not the only, but one of the major reasons or their purpose to continue on in this life themselves. So um, interesting, and I guess difficult to hear that that was even a thought in your mind, that I'm not in that space to even help my own son.
Yeah.
Um, so the purpose, I guess, that you found was more around helping other people that were hurting. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just knowing that her death wasn't just about a lady walking around being sad with her sad son.
Yeah.
I wanted it to mean something. I wanted it to have a bigger purpose. And and not to diminish how precious my son was to me at the time, because
Mm,
God knows he was the only thing that kept me, well, not the only thing, but the biggest thing that kept me going, absolutely. However, in my state of grief, my mind told me that, I, he had lost me too, and that he was better off without me, I
yeah.
thought in my mind. But that's coming from a very dark, lonely, helpless place, right? That I was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, his, who he is and who he was, to me, totally. I mean, he got me out of bed every day, because I had to get up and I had to get him to school. And sometimes I get him to school and I come home and I go to bed, know, and then get up and go get him from school. So, I mean, he certainly was a driving force and kept me moving forward. But I didn't want that to be the box that I lived in, you know, coming home and him being sad and I miss Rachel and how come Rachel isn't walking me to school, and all of that sadness that we were enveloped in.
Yeah. And so we're all glad that you found that purpose, to push on and obviously be there for Sean, but also drive this this education piece for other people. What you've learned from Rachel's passing for other people, and I'd have to say it probably wouldn't be, well, not probably, I don't think it would be unusual for people to feel that way as well. That maybe my family or surviving children or spouse or whatever it might be would be better off without me, because I'm not going to walk
Mm.
this earth being a sad sack. So if for people that might be in that situation and having those thoughts, uh, what uh, I guess what advice would you give to them?
I would say to reach out and not do the journey alone. I mean, gosh, again, I'm so grateful for how I was surrounded with people. And although in my mind at the time, people were better off without me, just having those people around was constant evidence that I mattered in other people's lives, and that I would have been missed, and that I was enough. Even though I was in, a not so great place. Um, you know they they just kept engaging me in life, and I mean, it's just like, it literally is 1 hour at a time and 1 day at a time. and to not, I mean, easy to say now, don't believe your thoughts because I certainly believed them and I certainly thought that they were valid. But, just willing to have another hour and another day and another morning and another afternoon and just doing the next logical thing and drawing on those people that love you and care about you. And I really had to learn how to receive. I was one of those people. I like to give and I like to be there for others. And so it was very odd for me to be on the receiving side of that. And that was a beautiful, beautiful lesson that I got to live and like to learn and now to continue to live with in my life to actually be able to receive. And I think that, we all have a huge life lesson, I think, to learn when we go through these things and to allow the grief to teach us. Even the fact that grief is designed to slow us down. I felt like grief was cruel and it was hard and it was like, you trudge through it and it was like a fight. But now in hindsight, I see how grief was kind. It actually taught me how to slow down. It taught me how to make priorities and what was important in life. And it taught me who the people were that were going to be by my side and to let the other ones go, that couldn't handle it. And I mean, there was just this big shedding and this new person really got to emerge from the grief. So to understand that it's it's not against you, that it's grief is actually for you. And it is kind. And I know it doesn't feel like that in the moment, but if you can just allow grief to wash over you and move you through it and allow it to change you in the best possible way that it can.
It's a really good point, and something that I guess I haven't reflected on either until now. But you're right in that
Mhm.
I think there's this appreciation now where grief has slowed things down for me post, dad passing away and having that appreciation with my own family and my own mortality and appreciating those moments, the little
Mhm.
things. So
Yeah.
it's a really good point. Thank you for raising that. Onto the work that
Yeah.
and speaking of giving and receiving, Rachel, probably a really good segue into the advocacy work that you're doing now with organ donation and the public speaking side of things. Um, what would your message be, or what is your recurring conversation that you're having with people around that opportunity that you gained from Rachel's passing?
Yeah. It's interesting because there are like a handful of things that I notice are said over and over and over again. So one thing is that grief can be kind, which we were just talking about. The other thing is that grief isn't just about death. That was one of the biggest lessons I learned. I mean, obviously, I was brought to my knees when Rachel died, but it showed me all the other losses in my life that I had not expressed, had not acknowledged, and had not resolved. And that was such an eye-opening experience for me. And it allowed me to not just grieve the death of my daughter, but to grieve all the rest of the losses that I had had in my life. And that was so healing. And the other thing that I learned and that I tend to talk over and over again is how it's not just the one loss. It's like when you lost your dad, it's not just your dad that died. It's like the companionship. It's the things you used to do together. It's the picking up the phone and being able to call him. It's the conversations. It's the wisdom. It's the what he won't see, with your kids as they grow, as they graduate. He's not going to see them buy their new house. He's not going to, all the things that that you're going to miss. They're all losses. So it's like, yes, dad dies and you have that initial blow, but it's almost like you lose him again and again and again as life presents opportunities where dad isn't there, you know? And I mean, there'll never be a Christmas probably for you, and not to put words in your mouth, but there will never be a Christmas where you don't miss dad sitting at the head of the table, right?
Mm. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's, learning that, those are the lessons I think that I talk about over and over again. And what's interesting, I was talking to a really good friend of mine on the weekend, and she asked me, why do you think some people move through grief and find gratitude in the process, and others only find pain? And I said, "Oh, I love that question, because it's true. There are some people." And, you know, I know that when you come to your grief process, you bring all of you to your grief process. You bring your personality, your beliefs, your values, your culture, your religion, your past experiences, your relationship with that person. Because one person can die and 10 different people are going to have a different experience with their grief, right? So you bring all of that to your grief process. And I think it depends who you are bringing to the grief process on how it's going to go. I was determined, I was stubborn. I was, I like I had faith, my faith played a big part in it. So it depends what you are bringing to your grief process, how it's going to roll out for you, and where you're going to land on the other side. So that's what I shared with my friend. It's like, and you can see two different people with two different personalities and two different belief systems, or two different ways of handling things. I mean, my ex-husband, he turned to alcohol. That was his coping strategy, and in the end, he ended up killing himself. That was like, he just never got his footing after Rachel died. Two different people with the same loss, approaching it two different ways. I'm on stages sharing the story and, inspiring people, and he's at home with a bottle. So
Mm.
um, it just depends, I think, what you bring to the table.
And what you choose to do, right? Because
Yeah,
you could have chosen that path as well, I think yourself, but you chose the to help people with your
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah.
And so on the other side of that, post people coming to see you and listen to your experience, and then Rachel being able to give even after she's passed, have people come back to you with their own experiences around family members or whatever it might be, friends with organ donation specifically?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely brought the topic front and center. And people will tell me that because of Rachel's story, now they have let their family know. Because years and years ago, it was like you signed your driver's license and you let them know. But nobody's leafing through your wallet when you die, right? So unless it's verbalized, people are none the wiser about what their wishes are. So yeah, it definitely brought some awareness, and I've had many, many people over the years tell me that they chose to donate their organs because of Rachel's story.
Wow, that's amazing. That must be so satisfying, if that's the word, or for yourself that
Yeah,
Rachel's passing has yeah, continued to mean something and it's touching so many other people.
exactly. And years later, there was so I remember, I think I told you and Ryan last time about being able to meet the little girl who got Rachel's heart,
Yes,
and
yes.
how that all came about.
I can't remember if that was on the actual podcast or if it was our chat afterwards, but I do remember that you you reached out? You were able to find
Yeah,
her, and it was
so
this serendipitous moment, wasn't
yeah,
it?
it
That
was so serendipitous. My friend who lived in London, which is 3 hours away from me, saw a newspaper article about a little girl who had undergone a heart transplant.
that's
And
right.
then
Yeah, I just got
her
goosebumps because I'm.
daughter,
It's all coming back to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
her daughter had been at a beaver outing, and one of the little boys in her beaver group had brought a mom and a little girl who had been at the hospital because his mom was a nurse at the hospital. And they brought, Cindy and her daughter Mary to this beaver outing. And the little girl went up to my friend Kim and just grabbed her hand, like just randomly, and took Kim aback because it had only been a couple months since Rachel died, and this little girl reminded her of Rachel. So she started talking to this little girl, and it turned, they got chatting away, and she had a mask on, a medical mask, and Kim said, have you been sick? And the little girl said, no, I just got a new heart. And that just like took Kim back. And then Kim kind of took a deep breath and said, when did you get your heart? And she told her the date. And Kim was like, oh my goodness, this is probably Rachel's heart. And so Rachel, then Kim saw the newspaper article with this little girl in the newspaper. So that got captured the last name. And I had been writing to her anonymously through the hospital because you're not allowed to know the name, but
Mm.
now I knew the name, so I was able to call her, and our families became friends, and we're still great friends to this day. So it was 2 years after before I felt ready to meet her, but yeah, and then Mary ended up dying 2 years later. Actually, unfortunately, she had a lot of complications, and but I was so grateful that we got to have a relationship with her for 2 years before she died. And
That's
like I say,
phenomenal. I don't even want to know. There couldn't be a chance, a percentage of that happening. You being able to meet the little girl that got your little girl's heart.
yeah,
It's almost so unbelievable to be true to believe.
I
For
know.
people that won't ever get that chance, where that someone that has passed in their family has donated, um, what is that experience like? Like, I guess you had the opportunity to meet the little girl that received Rachel's heart. What was that experience like? Because people, as I said, people won't probably ever get that opportunity. Um, I guess the connect that they've been able to help someone else.
It is the most profound experience for both of us. I mean, they were just so filled with gratitude because it saved their daughter's life. And although we were still pretty overcome with grief at that stage, but being a bit, because I had done the public speaking and Sean was aware of the public speaking and he would quite often be with me, to actually see it come to fruition in real life was like bringing a fairy tale to life. I'm up there talking about it and inspiring people with the story, but saying that she had donated her heart and she saved a 7-year-old girl, but then to actually meet that little girl, like I say, it was like bringing an inspiring story to life. And yeah, you can't put words into that. It was just so profound. And like I say, Cindy and I, remained friends, and I've gotten to know some of her friends, and she's gotten to know some of my friends. And one of her friends' daughters was going to Humber College, and they were putting this documentary together, and got chatting to Cindy and her friend about how they knew each other and why they were in the city to see me, and all the connections. And they were so inspired by hearing about Cindy and I being friends and Rachel and Mary's connection. They decided to put the documentary together about Rachel and Mary. And then so there's a 15-minute documentary out there that I believe I sent to you last time that is out there in distribution. So
I'm not sure
like
if we
the
shared that
the
with the last one, but we'll definitely. I'll get. re-obtain those details and make sure we share it with this episode for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And so just, I mean, the number of serendipity things that came out of it, you just know that there's divine intervention and you know that you're doing the right thing when things line up like that,
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, it was so precious.
And Cheryl, practically speaking, just to wrap up, it might be different in Canada, and I'm fortunate, I guess, in my professional world that with planning and finances, I'm talking to people about what happens after. Have you done that? So over here we talk about estate planning, and as you said, not just you know ticking a box on your driver's license, because I think that's the old way that we used to do it. You mentioned before verbalizing with someone. I know in Australia you can also um, make specific wishes in your will, to that you would like your organs donated to research or for medical reasons. Um, is it similar in Canada?
I think you can, but they advocate about communicating your wishes because quite often the will isn't read until after. So you're in the hospital in that tragedy opportunity, that small window when you can donate. Nobody's cracking open a will to see, what the wishes were. That's something you deal with kind of after the fact. So that's why they advocate to express the wishes.
Yeah, and your recommendation would be just verbally with a family member or spouse that that's what you would like to happen.
Yeah. There's also a registry too in Canada that you
Yeah,
can sign up for too.
yeah. I'd say there would be. I believe there is over here too. So,
Yeah.
your message to people to wrap things up would be to, um, I won't put words in your mouth. What should people do to make sure that they're happy to donate and give that gift to someone else should they pass away?
Well, like I say, it's a personal choice. It really is a personal choice. I know for me, it brought so much gratitude and so much purpose and meaning, knowing that my little girl's life, lives on in other people. And, she gave Mary an extra 4 years of life with her family, which they will always, always be grateful for. And her lungs went into, they were flown down to the United States and transplanted into a young 12-year-old girl who had already undergone a heart and a lung transplant, and this was her second lung transplant, so it gave her a second um, opportunity at life. And her two corneas were donated, so a baby was blinded at birth, and Rachel gave that baby sight, and another toddler was blinded in surgery, and she gave that toddler sight. So knowing that her life not only lives on in my heart, but actually lives on physically in other people's lives, and the difference that makes, it's just bigger than us. It's just bigger than us. I mean, I can't even put words into it. And if you have the opportunity, I just would encourage you to follow through with your loved one's request, if that is their request, and have that be, a piece of gratitude that you can hold on to in a very, very dark, awful time in your life.
It's a great message. It's bigger than us. I like it. Thank you very much, Cheryl, for joining us again in your with your professional hat on for our Chat to a Professional series on the Remembering Them podcast. Have loved having you back. I know that I mentioned to you pre-recording that Ryan will be very disappointed that he missed out on speaking with you. So we might have to have you back again. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, you're my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So I normally say, well, Ryan, that was Cheryl. So listeners, that was Cheryl Parker joining us again from Ontario in Canada. Um, I do have to say, um, during that chat, and I was thinking about it as we were talking, that during this episode we started to talk about um, difficult thought processes and thoughts of suicide, after Rachel's passing. So if you do find yourself in a similar situation, goes without saying, speak to someone, reach out in your respective countries. Obviously, here in Australia, we have Lifeline and Griefline and a lot of those resources that you can contact 24/7. And if you're in Canada, I'm sure or in the US, there are organizations of similar opportunities for you to reach out and speak to someone and help you through that process. So please do reach out if you are having any of those kind of thoughts. And also, on the back of the discussion with Cheryl, have a look, do some research in your own state or country around what the process is with organ donation. I know I've done it personally. Probably haven't verbalized it, I guess, as to family members. So uh, take this as the official verbalization to my family that listen to this. But also, I have ticked the box when I did my driver's license. I'm not sure if it's still on there. Or if it's still a thing, in fact, but also it's in my will that I think it's a wonderful thing if there is not the religious side that is holding you back. I don't see any other reason why you wouldn't. So yeah, check that out and research it for yourself. Check out the link to the documentary that will link to this episode, and also please share this episode 21 that you feel it would get something out of it or learn something from. And as always, share, like, and follow us on all the socials. We also have the Patreon exclusive chat, which Cheryl stuck around for, and we dug a little bit deeper into the organ donation side of things. So we'd love for you to join us on there. $6 a month US. Not sure what that converts to Canadian dollars. It's about $9 Australian. So please jump on and support us through Patreon. And also, we've got the My Legacy message service as well for you to leave a message to loved ones after you pass. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for putting up with just me running solo for this episode and my discussion with Cheryl. Ryan, I'm assuming will be back. Unfortunately, he was away for work with this episode, but I'm sure he'll be back. Hopefully, be back for the next one. Thank you for joining me. Bye.